Hi, I'm Joe Finsternis, and tonight I'm going to be talking to you about a movie called Inside. Now, as I usually start off reviews like this is a French film with subtitles, but the DVD has an English dub track. If you hate subtitles, blah blah blah, moving on. So, this is another one of those cases where you can't judge a film for its cover. Although in this case it was the opposite of Almost Human, where looking at the cover I thought that it kind of looked like this generic sort of torture porn film, and for another thing it was sort of derivative of another Dimension Extreme movie that came out around the same time. I guess somebody had a thing for bellies going on. But there's been so much hype surrounding it recently. There's this one guy here on YouTube called Spanner's Germ 669 who's talked about this film a couple of times as a film that pushes the boundaries and whatnot. Plus there's another channel called LB Horror Reviews where this guy has a series on the most disturbing movies, and this is one of the movies he's brought up. And to my understanding, it's part of this French new wave of extreme horror filmmaking. So that kind of piqued my interest. I have seen one of these types of films before. I watched Frontier, if that's how you pronounce it, last year, and it was pretty good, and it had some pretty graphic parts, but it wasn't quite up there as far as disturbing material is concerned. And I haven't watched Martyrs yet, but I will be discussing it later this month. Anyway, Inside has a pretty straightforward story, but it's a pretty good concept for a horror film. Basically, it's about this pregnant woman named Sarah who's about to have her first child when one night her home is invaded by this insane woman who wants to have her baby. Now, as you're being introduced to Sarah during the sort of opening act of the film, she comes off as kind of a bitch, but it's not completely misunderstandable, I guess, if that's a word, because the film starts off with a pretty huge tragedy in Sarah's life. Just the opening scene alone lets you know that you're in for an unpleasant experience. And another thing that I liked about her character in this movie was that she wasn't the typical sort of damsel in distress that's become associated with the horror genre. The way that she handles this crazy woman from the get-go is pretty smart. Of course, the woman coming after her is just as intelligent, so there is kind of a battle of wits going on, as well as a cat and mouse game. And I don't really feel like I'm spoiling too much when I say this, but there are also people who try to come to Sarah's aid and try to help her, and when things get violent between these people and the woman in Sarah's house, the violence in this movie gets pretty graphic. I mean, during the last decade or so, this label unrated has been so overused. Like, you might get some extra story elements sprinkled in. If you're lucky, you might get to see an exploding head or something, but this film earns the unrated seal. And on top of just being extremely graphic, this is legitimately one of the scariest and most suspenseful movies I've seen in a while. The only kind of nitpicky thing I have to complain about here is that there are a few scenes where you get these quick shots of the baby inside of Sarah's womb as it's reacting to the trauma she's going through, and it's all done in CGI, and I just thought that those shots were kind of cheesy and unnecessary, but it really doesn't detract from the movie as a whole. If this film scares you away, it should not be for the CGI baby. It should be if you are faint of heart, because it is a very extreme film. It does live up to the hype as one of the most disturbing movies, for sure. But if you want to see something that will push your limits, I highly recommend it. I thought it was a lot better than Frontier. It's the best film that I've reviewed for this month so far, and it's the best home invasion movie I've seen. So that's pretty much all I've got to say about Inside. I hope you all have a good one.